Hello and welcome to my channel. So for this video, there will be a time lapse of my original character in kind of an Easter painting, which is kind of a little late considering it's already past Easter, but when I was painting it, it was definitely Easter time. But first, there will be some swatching of the Pastel watercolor Holbein paint that I had gotten from Japan. You can most certainly purchase it here in Canada. It just costs a lot more. So I'm just gonna start off with a little rant as my really crappy swatching is going on because I can't be ever bothered to do any good swatching. I was actually going to be creating a art market haul of two art markets that my best friend and I were planning to attend to in Toronto. But alas, we were unable to attend both because there were 2+ hour wait times in the lines, which we did not know was a thing, and we bailed. Just like actually a bunch of my friends bailed. I really hope that the markets increase the days that they're having these markets, or increase the venue size or something. I know that's not an easy thing, but I think considering the exponential interest and the amount of wait times, that it was like the entire day, no matter what time you arrived, it was gonna be a 2-hour wait. I think they've come to a crossroads where they need to do it, because this is not the first year that at least one of the markets has existed, and this is not even the first year it's been a 2-hour wait. So I really hope they take that into consideration. I hope they manage to get bigger sponsors or whatever, as I believe that's typically how events usually go and how they actually get funded. I know Anime North is a non-profit, but it too also has sponsors, always I see. So however that works, I hope they manage to work it out, because they've clearly planned the events, so they're already in that gig, so they should be able to. Kind of frustrating, because I did also comment on the official event page if they were going to expand by a couple of days, or maybe a bigger venue, seeing as clearly it's a very long wait time and they have a lot of interest. But naturally, all I got was basically this one troll being like, oh, then why don't you pay for it? Which I think is a very juvenile and childish thing to rebuttal or something, because, you know, it's an event, and usually it just means, okay, well, get bigger sponsors or something because you have high interest. And I even frustratingly bothered to respond to this person being like, are you trying to imply they can't get bigger sponsors or something? Considering their size, they probably should be able to. Naturally, this genius didn't even say anything other than because they're either a child or a complete troll. Oh, well, then why don't you volunteer your services to execute your own vision of the event? Which was such a troll stupid thing to say. Literally, I was just asking if they were going to expand because of the amount of interest for the event. That's not my vision, that's their growth that they kind of need to do something about. I mean, they could leave it, but then there's just gonna be possibly even more growth. I don't know, maybe not, who knows. Here I am bitching and complaining about what a troll is saying, because they don't really care. They're not the event organizers. They probably don't even know who these people, and they're just in a very poor fashion speaking on their behalf, essentially, which is very frustrating because, you know, you're just kind of just want answers for an event if you can even be bothered to be excited for the next year. The good news is the artists themselves, I have seen them originally at Anime North last year, so I probably will just see them in Anime North again this year, and whatever to the event and the trolls. So literally, as I'm recording this, a friend had just posted in the Discord that the event hall was bigger last year, so they literally downgraded this year. That really sucks for the venue, but I do wish that the commenters had bothered then to say this instead of being trolls for the sake of being trolls. But then I guess that tells me they probably don't know themselves and didn't have a clue. Oh well, I hope the venue can actually do better, and I really hope more art markets keep popping up, because I do see a lot of art store, little stationery store stuff pop up a lot, and those aren't crazy crowded, so I'm just probably gonna check those out in the future. Apologies so much about ranting and rambling about this. Let's get back to the video. So yeah, that's apologies for going on a rant about that. We've already gotten into the actual painting now. So for the painting, it was a direct sketch onto paper. Again, I didn't bother doing the whole lightbox whatever process, blah blah blah. And I had just done some line work and started some wash. Now the thing that stressed me out about pastel watercolors in particular is because they're a little bit more opaque, and they behave a little bit more different when being mixed. And also in terms of contrast, I was wondering how much I was gonna go, so spoiler alert, I kind of cheat and do end up using a few more colors just to add that extra punch of it, and so it just all stands out more. This was by no means the best subject matter, actually, just for an entirely pastel watercolor set, so I did use all the colors. It's just I had to use more colors just for the subject matter to actually make more sense, I guess. Actually, at one point, I was fairly stressed when it was at its ugly stage, which, I mean, I say this, but I'm always stressed out at the ugly stage of a painting, where I really, really was thinking this is the one where I was not going to be able to finish and I was going to scrap this entire thing. I also regrettably used cold press cotton paper, which the last Murasaki painting I did, which I was very comfortable with, was not a 100% cotton paper, and I remember noting I actually really enjoyed that painting. Now the thing about 100% cotton paper, at least for this brand, is it is not solid white, which I think maybe all 100% cotton papers aren't solid white now that I think about it, because I remember noting this before for another brand, I believe. And when you already just did one painting on a like bleached white, whatever you want to call it, piece of paper versus a natural white piece of paper, the colors are different. There's no other way to put it. The colors still turn out like different. So I think that was also another stress factor, where I had just gotten used to one and I decided to switch things up for no apparent reason other than to like challenge myself more, I guess, and I was not too happy about it. So it's a new day and a first ugly phase, or at least some parts I didn't mind so much, but I was still a little bit worried, especially about the building in the back and how I was gonna deal with a tree, which I'm not entirely sure if I was ever happy with it, or wasn't sure if I was gonna add to it, and the branches that I was thinking of, or just keep it a little bit more abstract. It's very different working with these pastel paints because, again, I think they definitely have white in them, or at least a bunch of them for sure do. I know some people have said in the past that they don't have to disclose if it's like the white pigment also added into it, so I forget if I checked every tube or not for this fact. But you can kind of tell there's like an opaqueness or something to pastel paints typically. And because I don't normally ever work with these colors, it was a very different kind of challenge, you could definitely say. So this was literally the moment where I started including non-pastel watercolors, which is probably evident on the side of the video where I'm mixing the colors. I didn't want to go too crazy, but there was definitely some details I could not achieve with the pastel paints, like having the different types of colored foliage and the building behind, and also the character himself, especially his hair. It just was kind of all being blended together. This was specifically because I did not want to use ink line art. I really wanted the colors mostly to be speaking for themselves. I was kind of enjoying that as I did it for the last painting, and I kind of wanted to continue that on. I'm sort of really impressed with the way I was actually working with the line art here. I mean, just making the lines for the building. and working with this brush, just because I remember in the past always feeling like I was struggling with that brush and always struggling with just like creating lines. Like they're not perfectly straight ruler straight lines. I kind of like the little bit of like you know, imperfections of it or something, because it's not meant to be like some perfect straight painting. To weird it in a really funky way. But it makes me realize we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, always like trying to focus so much on improving, that I think we just don't let ourselves improve, or don't let ourselves see that we've improved so much. And this isn't even a detail I've never even focused on. It's literally just me watching the footage back and just realizing this little fact or something, where I've gotten very comfortable with this brush, and making the strokes have not made me as stressed out. And also, I know I keep mentioning the ugly phase and how I got stressed out, but I'm nowhere near as stressed out in the past. And in the past, I would literally just abandon watercolor paintings or acrylic paintings or any kind of paintings, digital even. I would just abandon them because it was the ugly phase and I didn't think it could be finished or completed. And I mean, that's even worse because it feels almost like, oh, I couldn't try. But I like that I've gotten brave enough to actually finish these, and regardless, and just keep going and see it through to the end, and only then really decide whether or not it was an accomplishment or a failure. And in most cases, it's some kind of accomplishments. I've learned something in each process. And again, this is not something that I've actually had the magical epiphany of as I completed it or something. It's more like ages later I notice it. And I think everybody kind of probably has that, where they just don't realize it. Because I do hear people on occasion be like, oh, I'm not improving, or oh, this sucks. But just know you probably are in some ways that you aren't realizing it, and that you'll definitely eventually get there. Because I think we're just always learning, and we kind of have to accept that. So speaking of improvements, I'm happy that I was once again brave enough to draw directly onto the paper, the entire sketch and final kind of thing. In the past, because I know they always say erasing a lot on watercolor paper can damage it, I was always doing the whole process of sketching my sketchbook first, and then creating the final line art in digital, and then transferring it to the final paper. Also, I reference the pose. Typically, I like to go to Pose Maniacs and see what kind of poses they have, so this one is from there. And on occasion, if I have already an idea of a pose in my head, I will try and recreate it with like a 3D figure. Now, it's either in Clip Studio, I will do that, seeing as it has it, or there's an app called Art Pose. There's both a female and a male version. I have both apps. It might be small time purchase, or just like one small purchase or something, like of like $3.99, something like that. I can't remember. It hasn't been updated for ages, but I prefer that app because despite it being more of a pain in the ass to try and pose the things on your phone or iPad or whatever, the body itself is more detailed and even has like more defined proper muscles. While Clip Studio's body, the default one that you already get, is a little bit more anime-ish and a little bit less defined. Technically, its bends are a bit more accurate and are nicer as opposed to the app itself, because sometimes you can really twist and mess up some of the joints and stuff like that, and it can look really, really funny if you screw it up. So there's pros and cons technically of both, but I do ultimately kind of, if I can, do the Art Pose one instead, just because of if I really want some definition of muscles or something like that, and certain like parts of the body. And I think there's even like a layer which kind of shows the muscle layer, which is kind of neat if you're kind of like considering or thinking about that kind of stuff. Again, not 100% accurate, but still the body shape itself is more accurate to a real life human being versus the Clip Studio one. I'm sure that for Clip Studio you can import a much better figure basically. I know I've seen people do it. It's just convenience, right? Something like I keep remembering that, but I completely keep forgetting about that, and I don't really search it up, and I'd probably have to pay money for it because I doubt there's a free version. Maybe there is, but again, it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. I don't think about it until I've already like set up the pose and done all the work, basically. That is always something that drives me crazy, where in the most inconvenient times, I remember something that would probably be of more use to me if I bother to actually take out the time and figure it out. But I've remembered at the worst time, or when I've already completed the task, so it would mean redoing the entire task just for the sake of doing that thing, which is supposed to be making the task itself more convenient, but then you have to redo it in that moment in time. And you'd never remember it in between tasks when you do have the free time to actually do it. And yes, yet another cheat to the pastel painting. I had added gold ink to design his pattern on his top once again. I can't seem to help myself, but I also really enjoy using that gold ink now that I know activating it just means you just have to shake it violently in order for it to work out nicely. And it's finally complete. I'm fairly happy with the way it turned out. I am debating whether or not his face looks a bit weird. I feel like it might be with the texture of the paper, because sometimes the smaller the face, the more the texture itself will affect it. As sometimes when I look really close up to it, I like it a lot better than further back. What are your thoughts? Have you ever tried using pastel watercolors and only pastel watercolors? Or do you end up cheating completely like me and adding a whole bunch of other colors to add some more contrast? If you've gotten this far, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, I hope you can drop a like. And if you want to see more of my videos, please subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. See you on the next one.